Canadians are the most pessimistic about the economy they've been since 2008. This, according to Pollara's annual Economic Outlook study. So for a closer look at the results, we're joined live by Dan Arnold, the Chief Strategy Officer at Pollara. Dan, good to talk to you today. People worry about money a lot, Dan, but you're seeing money worries amongst Canadians that we haven't seen in almost a decade and a half. What do your numbers actually find?
Yeah, I could throw a lot of numbers at you here. I think we could sum it up with one word, though, which is worried. People are really worried about the Canadian economy. They're worried about their personal finances. This is the 28th year we've asked this survey, and as you mentioned, this is the most pessimistic people have been since the financial markets crashed in 2008. Right now, you've got 83% of Canadians who feel like the country is in a recession. And when we ask, looking ahead to 2023, what do you expect? Only 14% think it's going to get better. 56%, most Canadians, think it's going to get worse this year. So it's already not feeling that great for Canadians. They're already worried, and they get more worried when they look ahead to what's going to happen this year.
And that jump of almost 20%, 17%, saying that they feel the country's in a recession just year over year, that's a pretty high jump. You said you've been doing this for 28 years. Is this the highest jump in 1 year ever? It's certainly the highest since '09, but that kind of attitude amongst Canadians, that's a big jump.
Yeah, we've seen a big increase. I think this is really driven by a year of very high inflation. We asked a bunch of questions about how people are feeling about different cost of living pressures on the survey as well, too. And you've got almost half of Canadians who say that they're very stressed when they think about the cost of food at the grocery store. You've got about a third of Canadians who are very stressed about the cost of housing, about the cost of gas at the pump. And I'm not going to read the whole list here, but safe to say, everybody's got something that's stressing them out when it comes to cost of living expenses. And everybody's got to eat. So, I think that kind of explains it. We've had a year of high bacon prices at the grocery store, and we're seeing the impacts of that with Canadians who feel like they're falling behind the cost of living.
Now, I'm not necessarily seeing here, Dan, people worried about their jobs per se, but they feel like even if they have a job, that they're losing ground, and that's when you feel like the sand is running out from underneath your feet, that's not a good feeling.
Yeah, that's one of the interesting findings here, because traditionally, if you look back on past years, you usually see the years when people are most worried about the economy, it's when the job market is not doing well. Whereas, we're at near record level lows of unemployment. And on the survey, when we asked people how you feel about your job security, you've only got 5% of Canadians who say that they're very worried about losing their job, or that a family member could lose their job in the year ahead. So that's not what's driving the anxiety right now. But yeah, when people are feeling like you just can't keep up, like your paycheck's not keeping up with the price of food at the grocery store, with the price of rent, with the housing market, that's when people really start to get frustrated. And I think that's what we're seeing the impact of here.
Okay, so Dan, let's talk about this. Are there any Canadians, or is there anything Canadians are feeling that the glass is half full on, or a little more optimistic about in your numbers?
Not a lot this year, if we're being honest about it. I think the job market is the one area where people are feeling a bit more positive, and maybe that speaks a bit more towards the long-term impacts not being as severe as some other economic pressure cookers we've been in the past. The fact that you have so few Canadians feeling like they are at least secure in their job, at least they feel like the bottom's not going to fall out, so maybe it becomes more of a bit of frustration as opposed to that despondent feeling when you actually are out of work. So I think maybe that would be the one optimistic note that we would see in the findings here this year.
Right, and in the past 28 years, as you look back, Dan, this year obviously we're seeing a pretty significant spike up quickly. When these trends tend to come down, do they come down just as quickly, or are they more of like a slow curve or a roll down?
Yeah, traditionally it's going to be a bit of a slower peak, or a slower descent down from these peaks here. The peak can happen very quickly, and we've seen that in the past. If the stock market crashes, or you get a year like this when inflation is at 8% for much of the year. People feel that right away, and you feel like things have changed a lot this year compared to last year. So that's why you see the numbers shoot up so quickly. But usually it takes a bit of time for people to kind of feel like they're back on their feet and that things are going better. So I don't expect next year is going to be a lot better on these numbers, but I guess we can hope.
Well, I guess let's talk again next year then and see what happens. That is Dan Arnold, the Chief Strategy Officer from Pollara, joining us live. Dan, appreciate the time. Thanks.